All right, so we left off at this point with our chair in this stage, right? And this can actually work quite well for our chair, right? We don't have to have tons of posts here if we don't want to. Obviously, if you want to make this a little bigger, you can, to maybe put more posts in. Remember, one of the things you can do with 3D at any point is go back and modify stuff, right? Once you kind of move to a different object, that doesn't mean that that object is necessarily done. You can come back to do work to it later. So if I want to, and I do, I want to do a little more work to this headrest, right? So remember, one of our big quick keys is 4 for object mode, right? That's going to be on our first mini quiz next week, 4 for object mode. And remember, you can click on these different objects right in the viewport, right? They are, of course, right here, right, on our outliner. But you can also click on them right in the viewport. So remember, 4 for object mode. It is right here, though, right? Remember, there's those pull-down menus. And then, of course, I want to go to edit mode. In this case, I really want to do stuff to the faces, right? Actually, I think edges right now. But actually, maybe faces first. So I'll go to face mode, right? So we'll go to 3 for face mode. So we'll go to 3 for face mode. And remember, you can select all. In this case, since I don't have any other kind of primitives in here in this initial object, I don't have to worry about doing select linked, right? Select linked would technically do this, but select all will do it as well. I actually want this headrest to be a little bit bigger. But remember, because I don't want to change the object size itself, and I don't want to necessarily screw with where the kind of center's at, you know, I'm going to face mode to select the faces, right? Remember, edit mode's right here, vertex, edge, face, but if you're using industry compatible, remember it's 1, 2, 3. We just finished up doing those mini quizzes, right? And of course, I can hit R for scale. And remember, with your scale tool on, remember they're right here also, right? I'm trying to get you guys to learn these quick keys, but most of these things are actually in the interface also. Scale tool's right there. Remember, if you click on the white circle on the outside, you could do uniform scale to make this bigger. I could also hit W for move to move it out a little bit to make it wider. Right? Remember, W is move. And remember, you can grab on these specific handles to adjust things and move them around, right? Maybe move this back a little bit. And now you can see that this headrest's a bit bigger, right? Now, at this point, I might want to do some beveling. And you notice we haven't beveled everything on this, right? The idea is to get you guys to see the bevel tools and get you using the bevel tools, but you know, we're trying to keep these reasonably efficient, right? So ideally, you know, you should always have bevels on stuff, but if like making a game model, you might have bevels on just certain parts that really where the bevel be noticeable. But I do feel like I should kind of have a rounded corner, at least on the fronts here, right? So 2 for edge mode, right? Remember, we're already in edit mode right here. You have the buttons right there, but remember that is 1, 2, 3. So 2 for edge mode. And remember, if you double left click, it selects an edge loop, right? And then of course I can hold down shift double left click to select another edge loop. Shift double left click. Shift double left click. Remember, you have to double click with your left mouse button quickly, right? You should do it about as fast as you can, so that way it registers it as a double click and not 2 single clicks. And remember, shift adds to selections, right? I've mentioned this a bunch in previous lectures, these videos. So this stuff's always there, available to you guys, right? And then, of course, shift to maybe just left click on that single edge right up there. And that gives us these edges right up here. There's ways you can select the faces and then convert and all that stuff, but in this case, this was easier for us to do. And of course, we have our bevel tool right here, right? Bevel. Remember, if you're in modeling workspace and you're in edit mode, you should see a lot of these primary tools on the side here. Bevel's right there. Control B is the quick key. I actually use these quick keys normally myself, but I'm trying to make sure that you know where the tool's at in the viewport, because sometimes it's easier when you're still learning to know where the tool's at than memorizing a shortcut, right? And as you go, you get the shortcuts memorized. So remember, Control B is the actual quick key for bevel. But once it's up, there you can left click on this yellow handle. Although, middle mouse button will also do it. Usually, middle mouse button will actually control your handles as well. Not always, but usually. So I do a bevel, and then I can go into the Bevel Options box. Remember, it's active, so I haven't done a second bevel. right? You just left click drag a little bit. Then once you let go, the bottom left corner, there's a little menu right here, right? You can click on it. So it's kind of a small, oops, my bad, let's go back. Remember, Control-C undoes, right? And remember, down here in the bottom left corner, you'll see a small little bar that says Bevel. If you click on that, it opens this up. Width is right here. If you want, you can actually play with some other settings here. We're kind of fine with basically what we have here. But we can give it some segments, right? Maybe at least one or two. That way it gives it a little more rounded shape there. And of course, Q will turn that tool off. And now we've got a bit of a bevel right here. Now, I also want to kind of create a proper headrest structure here, right? So that's where we can go to 3 for face mode again. Now remember, you could just left click these, right? I could shift left click, shift left click, shift left click, right? You just kind of keep holding down shift, left clicking on a face, it selects it. However, remember, if you hit Q, it toggles you. If you keep hitting Q, it toggles through all 4 different things you could use as your select tool. The default one is that rectangle select. If you hit Q, it goes to circle select, right? It's a kind of orange dotted, dashed kind of circle shape. And remember, circle select lets you hold down left mouse button and just move your tool. So it can make it a little quicker to select those things, right? You just hold down your left mouse button, move, and it's a drag select. Of course, you don't have to use that, and Q will toggle you back to the select box. But if you just want shift left click, shift left click, shift left, you can do that too. Now, I want to use that inset tool. Remember we saw it a little bit again the other day? It's right below extrude, right above bevel. The quick key for that's I. So we'll go to inset. And of course, it gives us a little handle. If you left click on the yellow circle, it'll do inset, but of course, middle mouse button will also do it, right? And you see what inset does, remember, is it creates new geometry, but instead of extruding it, it kind of scales it in, but it keeps that border even. Inset faces has its own options box on the bottom, right down here, right? Right down here. Click on it just like bevel. You can actually tell it not to offset even. So you can actually turn that off, but it's usually good to have it on. And in particular, because of the center right here, I want to turn boundary off, right? When you turn boundary off, uncheck it, it makes this all one seamless inset now across that center. And then, of course, we can do an extrude. And I'll just extrude along normal direction, so you grab that kind of yellow plus handle circle, left click drag on it, and that extrudes it out. Maybe R for scale to scale it in a little bit, right? So we can scale it in a little bit there. Maybe W for move it in a little bit. And now you see with an inset, we kind of get that little thinner strip here. And then that extrusion creates new geometry. Remember, inset and extrude are kind of like cousins. They are creating new geometry. The moment you press those tools and you grab that handle, new geometry is created. It's just that extrude lets you move it out some way, and inset scales it. That's kind of what they do that's different. Otherwise, they're creating the same geometry structure. It's just one is kind of focused on scaling in and keeping it relative to the kind of the shape that's on. And the other one is allowing you to move it out. So once again, kind of like how we did these, we just extruded a face out to create this little prong coming up here. We can create kind of our little pieces there. All right, so I'm going to go to 4 for object mode. And I think I'm going to make a minor adjustment to the kind of struts back here, the parts that are connecting the headrest to the seat. So remember, 4 for object. And of course, I could left click on those. 3 for face mode. And of course, I can do Control A for select all. Remember, select all is right here. Control A is the quick key for it, but there is a select menu with select all. If I want, I could rotate that back out a little bit. Maybe move it over just a little bit. Maybe rotate a little bit this way as well. You know, you can kind of make adjustments to kind of get that position a little better. There we go. Maybe a little bit of rotation. Remember, E is rotate, W is move, but they are right here as tools. Now, if I really wanted to have another one here, I could. I think I'm going to be fine with just the two. But you could always do Control D or Mesh Duplicate, click, and then you can move those in a little bit if you wanted to have more, right? So if you did kind of want to have an extra bit, you can do that just by duplicating, right? Mesh, duplicate. Usually that goes into view mode automatically, so if you kind of just start dragging your cursor, it'll move that duplicate. So if you want it to kind of stay pretty much on top, you just Control D or Mesh Duplicate, and just left click after that, and then it kind of places it right on top of the other one. Then you can switch to your Move tool to move it. You don't have to do that for this. If you just want to, that's fine. I think we're cool there. I'm going to do edge mode, right? 2 for edge mode. Select all. And I'm going to go to bevel. Left click drag on that little yellow plus just to get a nice little bevel there. Remember the options box for bevels right down here. Click on it. Segments. There we go. And now those are looking a bit nice and more rounded for us. 4 for object mode, right? And now I'm just going to do a little bit of what I did for this headrest seat on this seat down here. So I'm going to go to 3 for face mode. If I wanted to, I could always add a loop in here to round it off a little bit more. Remember, loop cut. I could put an edge loop right there. And if I wanted to, I could just left click on this edge, shift left click, right? And just turn my move tool on, and I can just move this out a little bit just to get a little more roundness there, right? So remember, loop cut, left click, it puts an edge loop in, and you can just select just some of the edges and just move those out to get a little more rounded shape. But of course, I do want to kind of create a seat kind of cushion here. So 3 for face mode. Remember, circle select can be a fast way to do this, but Q is your selection tool. And technically, you could always just left click, shift left click, right? So shift left clicking will keep adding. But remember, Q toggles you through this, right? You see right up here where my cursor's at. Q toggles you through the different options you have available for your selection tool. The second one is circle. Select circle. It's basically a dotted or dashed orange circle. Remember, that one just lets you hold down left mouse button and move your cursor, so it could be a little faster than shift left click, shift left click, shift left click. Of course, I can go to inset tool. Left click drag on that yellow handle, so it brings it in a bit here. Remember the bottom left corner, no matter what tool it is, loop cut, extrude, bevel, inset, the bottom left corner will have that little option as long as the tool's activated. So I left click dragged in a little bit. I let go, but I haven't clicked off. I haven't switched to a different tool. That means that this is still active at the moment. So I can still access its options. So I can go down here to click on that to open it up. And uncheck boundary, right? So that way it kind of sews up the center here to make it one single inset. And then, of course, I can extrude. Grab on the yellow plus to bring that up a little bit. There we go. Thank you. All right. And then, of course, maybe I can hit R for scale. Remember, they're all right here, though, right? Move, rotate, scale, scale. I can left-click drag on the white, bring that in a little bit. Maybe W to move it in a little bit here. And now I've got a bit of a cushion there. Now remember, this is all about really just showing you these core tools, right? You can make this even more intricate than this. You can make it more details, but this is kind of a high school 3D modeling class, and for almost everybody here, it's your first models ever. So it doesn't have to be a nuts complicated chair, but you see how just some bevels, some extrusions, a couple of different objects, a little bit of insetting and extruding allow you to make a chair that's reasonably interesting. And it lets you see some core and quite important tools. Now at this point, I'm going to go back to 4 for object mode. And one of the things you'll notice is we've got that kind of faceted shading going on here, right? Once again, we've seen this before. In fact, I did nothing new here. This has been in previous lectures. It's in the videos that we've already got posted. But remember, if you go back to 4 for object mode, if you right-click, you'll see one of the options when you right-click, remember, is it brings up your context menu. In this case, I'm in object mode. So when I right-click, it brings up this menu. The very top has Shade Smooth. You see how you can kind of go into these different objects, right-click Shade Smooth, select them because we're in object mode, right-click Shade Smooth, right-click Shade Smooth. There we go. Now, if we want to, remember there is this green triangle here over at our modifier, or our properties menu over here. Down towards the bottom is the orange triangle. If you click on that, it brings this up, and you'll see there's a section called Normals that you can click on. And you can turn on Auto Smooth. Now, in this case, I might turn the angle up or down a little bit. And you see how I can kind of give you some options there on how to make it kind of more smooth. So it does give you a little more options to kind of go in here, click on Auto Smooth, maybe turn up the angle a little bit. Turn Auto Smooth on there, maybe turn the angle up a little bit. There we go. And I think that one's fine too. But Auto Smooth kind of does a pretty good job of kind of doing a smooth refinement to this while giving you a little more direct control over the angle that it blends at. So you see how you can kind of still get some pretty good smooth shading on a lot of it, but also there's a bit of crispness to some areas that you maybe want crisp. So remember, the normal section Auto Smooth kind of gives you more direct control over the angle, the smoothing angle for these. The higher it is, the more it does a full shade smooth. The lower it is, it kind of goes back to being faceted, and whatever number it is, it can get you somewhere in between, right? So that's kind of neat. And once again, that's something we've seen before, though, right? This is not new. We've done it on previous projects. All right, that is a great place to stop on this today. I just wanted to go over bevels more, extrudes more, inset more. We've seen those all. Even just kind of remind you guys about duplicate and the auto smooth. The auto smooth, though, is the kind of thing you can do anytime later on. So it's kind of, if you're still just doing normal modeling, don't sweat it too much right now. I just want to make sure you've got a couple of videos and a couple of times seeing it as something that maybe you want to do at the end of the modeling process. Although, really, you can do it anytime you want to. All right. So like I said, that'll be a great place to stop for today's lecture.